The last drive. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. I never thought that a simple piece of mail would be the thing to finally break me. After burying my husband 6 months ago, after watching my son's indifference at the funeral, after enduring the suffocating silence of this empty house, I thought I'd felt everything pain had to offer. I was wrong. The return address read Heritage Classic Auto Sales, and my hands began to shake before I even opened it. My name is Margaret Chen, and I'm 58 years old. That's not old, not really, but grief has a way of adding decades to your reflection. When I look in the mirror now, I see a woman I don't recognize. Hollow eyes, silver hair that seem to turn overnight, shoulders that curve inward, as if my body is trying to protect a heart that's already shattered. Thomas, my husband, died of a sudden heart attack while mowing the lawn on a Sunday afternoon. One moment he was there, complaining about the weeds in the garden. The next, he was gone, just like that. No warning, no goodbye, no chance to say all the things I'd assumed we'd have decades to say. We'd been married for 33 years. Our son, Kevin, is 30 years old. He lives 20 minutes away with his wife, Ashley, in a modern townhouse with gray walls and furniture that looks like it belongs in a magazine. Beautiful, cold, untouchable, like Ashley herself. I used to think I was being unfair, calling her cold. Maybe I was just a typical mother-in-law threatened by the woman who'd replaced me in my son's affections. But after Thomas died, after I watched Ashley scroll through her phone during the eulogy, after she complained about the catering at the wake being too ethnic, I stopped questioning my instincts. And Kevin, my sweet boy who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, who cried at animated movies, who told me I was his best friend, that Kevin had disappeared somewhere around his 25th birthday, replaced by a man who'd checked his watch during our conversations and called me mother instead of mom. But we were still family. We were all each other had left. That's what I told myself anyway. The car sat in our garage like a sleeping dragon. Thomas's 1967 Mustang fastback. Nightshade purple with white racing stripes. Chrome that gleamed like liquid silver. An engine that purred like thunder wrapped in velvet. He'd bought it as a rusted shell when Kevin was 5 and spent 15 years restoring it. Every weekend, every spare dollar, every ounce of love he couldn't always articulate with words. I used to bring him coffee in the garage on Saturday mornings. He'd be under the hood or beneath the chassis, grease-stained and happy, explaining things I didn't understand about compression ratios and carburetor jets. I'd nod and smile, not because I cared about the mechanics, but because I cared about him. Because watching Thomas with that car was like watching a man commune with something sacred. "This is for Kevin," he'd say sometimes, running his hand along the fender. "Something to remember me by, something to pass down." He'd take Kevin out for drives on summer evenings, the two of them returning with wind-blown hair and matching grins. Thomas would let Kevin sit on his lap and hold the steering wheel in empty parking lots, teaching him to feel the road, to respect the machine, to understand that some things are worth preserving. Kevin loved that car. Or at least, he used to. After Thomas died, I couldn't bring myself to sell it, even though people asked. Friends, neighbors, even the estate lawyer, gently suggesting I liquidate assets to make things easier. But selling the Mustang would have been like selling Thomas's ghost, erasing proof he'd existed at all. So I kept it. I didn't drive it. I couldn't. But I kept it. I paid the insurance. I started it once a month to keep the battery alive. Sometimes I'd sit in the driver's seat, breathe in the lingering scent of his cologne mixed with motor oil and leather, and pretend he was still beside me. Kevin said he understood. He said, "Keep it as long as you need, Mom." That was 3 months ago. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a standard form letter, the kind printed on company letterhead with empty spaces filled in by hand, but the words might as well have been written in fire. "Dear Mrs. Chen, Thank you for your inquiry regarding the 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback currently in our possession. As discussed with the seller, we are prepared to offer $47,500 for this vehicle, pending final inspection and verification of title. However, we have some concerns regarding the chain of ownership. Our records indicate the letter continued, but I couldn't read it. The words blurred, swimming across the page like drowning flies. Seller. In our possession. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My breath came in short, painful gasps. The living room tilted sideways, and I had to grip the arm of the sofa to keep from falling. This had to be a mistake. Some administrative error. Kevin wouldn't. He couldn't. I grabbed my phone and dialed with numb fingers. He answered on the third ring. Hey, Mother, what's up? Kevin? My voice sounded strange, distant. I need you to come over. Right now. A pause. Is something wrong? I'm actually in the middle of... Now, Kevin, please. Perhaps he heard something in my tone, some edge of hysteria I couldn't quite control, because he sighed and said, Oh, give me 20 minutes. Those were the longest 20 minutes of my life. I paced. I stared at the letter. I walked to the garage and stood in front of the Mustang, as if physical proximity to the car could somehow undo whatever was happening. The purple paint gleamed under the fluorescent lights, accusing, abandoned. I'm so sorry, I whispered to it, to Thomas, to the ghost of every Saturday morning we'd spent together in this space. The doorbell rang. Kevin stood on the porch, looking annoyed. His tie loosened, his expression that of a man interrupted from important business. Ashley was with him, her arms crossed, her mouth already set in that particular line of irritation I'd come to know so well. Mother, what's so urgent? Kevin asked, not even waiting to be invited inside before walking past me into the living room. I held up the letter. My hand was still shaking. Want to explain this? His face. God, his face. For just a moment, I saw it. The flash of guilt, the widening of eyes, the color draining from his cheeks. But then his jaw tightened, and the mask slid back into place. I was going to tell you, he said. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward. You were going to tell me that you sold your father's car behind my back without asking? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Kevin? My voice was rising now, cracking. Please explain it to me. Explain how you could do this. Ashley made a small sound of impatience. Mrs. Chen, you're being dramatic. It's just a car. Just a car? I turned to her and whatever she saw in my face made her take a step back. Just a car? That was your father-in-law's life work. That was his legacy. That was a liability. Kevin interrupted. His voice was sharp now, defensive. Mom, be realistic. What were you going to do with it? You don't drive it. You can't maintain it properly. It's just sitting there, depreciating, costing money in insurance and storage. It's not yours to sell. Legally, it is. He pulled out his phone, swiped through something. Dad's will left all his personal property to me. The car is personal property. I had every right to... Rights? I was shouting now, tears streaming down my face. What about what's right, Kevin? What about respect? What about love? This is exactly why I didn't tell you, he said, his voice cold. I knew you'd react like this. I knew you'd make it into some huge emotional thing. It is emotional. It's your father. He restored that car for you. With his own hands for 15 years, He's dead, Mom. Kevin's words fell like stones. He's dead, and holding on to that car won't bring him back. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ashley broke it, her voice saccharine sweet. Mrs. Chen, Kevin and I have been planning a trip to Paris, a second honeymoon. We've been working so hard, and we just needed, we needed the funding. The car was just sitting there, and... You sold your father's car for a vacation? I stared at my son. You sold your father's memory so you could take your wife to Paris? Don't make this about Ashley, Kevin said. This is about practicality, about moving forward instead of living in the past. He blinked. What? Get out of my house. My voice was eerily calm now. Both of you, get out. Mother, you're overreacting. Get out! The scream tore from somewhere deep inside me, somewhere I didn't know existed. Get out! Get out! Get out! They left. Kevin's face was red, his mouth moving in what might have been apologies or might have been more justifications. I couldn't hear over the roaring in my ears. Ashley clutched her purse like I might physically attack her. Maybe I would have. Maybe I should have. The door slammed, their car pulled away, and I collapsed on the floor, the letter still clutched in my fist, and sobbed until I had nothing left inside. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the garage in Thomas's old chair, staring at the Mustang, replaying every moment of the confrontation, every word, every flash of my son's face. He'd looked at me like I was crazy, hysterical, unreasonable. Maybe I was. But Thomas would have understood. Thomas, who'd spent 15 years of weekends covered in grease and bruised knuckles. Thomas, who'd talked to that car like it had a soul. Thomas, who'd saved for months to afford the right chrome trim, the exact shade of purple paint, the original factory radio. For Kevin, he'd always said. And Kevin had sold it for Paris, for croissants and the Eiffel Tower, and probably some overpriced hotel where Ashley could post photos on Instagram. Around 3 a.m, I finally went inside. But I couldn't face the bedroom, our bedroom. So I slept on the couch, if you could call it sleeping. Mostly I stared at the ceiling and wondered how everything had gone so wrong. The phone rang at 9 a.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But some stubborn part of me, the part that wasn't ready to give up entirely, made me pick up. Mrs. Chen? A man's voice, rough but kind. This is Frank Delgado from Heritage Classic Auto Sales. My heart stopped. Yes? Listen, I'm not supposed to be making this call, but there's something you need to know about the Mustang. I sat up, gripping the phone. I got your letter. I know my son sold it. He did. A pause. Mrs. Chen, I've been in this business 30 years. I know cars, and I know people. And when your son came in last week with that Mustang, something didn't sit right. What do you mean? He didn't know anything about it. Didn't know the specs, didn't know the restoration history. When I asked him about the engine work, he gave me some bullshit answer about a mechanic doing it. But that car, Mrs. Chen, that car is a passion project. Nobody pays a mechanic to do that level of restoration. That's love work. That's a man's soul bored into metal. Tears were streaming down my face again. My husband, I whispered. My husband restored it. I figured. I also figured your son didn't have permission to sell it, or he wouldn't have been so nervous. So I stalled, told him I needed to verify some paperwork, run some background checks. And then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I looked up the registration, found your name, found your number. Why? I asked. Why would you do that? Because that car is special, and because I got a feeling that someone out there was going to have their heart broken if it got sold. Was I right? Yes, I sobbed. God, yes. Okay, listen to me. The sale isn't final. Your son signed some preliminary paperwork, but title hasn't transferred. We've got a cooling off period, and technically, since you're listed as co-owner on the registration, the sale needs your signature too. I'm co-owner? Yep, probably your husband's doing. Smart man. Thomas. Even after death, protecting me, protecting the car. I felt my heart crack and swell at the same time. What do I need to do? I asked. Come down to the dealership. Bring your ID and the registration. We'll tear up your son's paperwork and you can take the car home. If that's what you want. It is. God, it is. Mr. Delgado, thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. You're going to have to deal with your son. I know. But I wasn't afraid anymore. The shock had burned away, leaving something harder behind. Something that felt like clarity, like purpose. Heritage Classic Auto Sales was a small operation on the east side of town, tucked between a used furniture store and a check cashing place. The lot was full of beautiful machines: vintage Corvettes, restored Camaros, a cherry red Thunderbird that gleamed like fresh blood, and there, in the showroom, behind the glass, Thomas's Mustang. I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, just staring. Then I walked inside. Frank Delgado was exactly what his voice suggested. Late 50s, barrel-chested, with oil-stained hands and kind eyes. He looked up from the desk and smiled. "Mrs. Chen?" "Yes." "Come on back. Let's get your car home." The paperwork took 20 minutes. Frank explained everything: how Kevin had forged my signature on the initial documents, how the sale would have been fraudulent even if it had gone through, how I could press charges if I wanted. "I don't want to press charges," I said quietly. "He's still my son." Frank nodded. "Your choice. But Mrs. Chen, that boy needs to learn that actions have consequences. You might be doing him a favor by letting this slide, but you might also be teaching him he can get away with it." "I know, but I've already lost my husband. I can't." My voice broke. "I can't lose my son, too." "You're a better woman than I'd be," Frank said. He handed me the keys. "She's all yours. Full tank of gas, fresh oil change on the house. Your husband did beautiful work, Mrs. Chen. This car is a masterpiece. He was a masterpiece." I whispered. Driving the Mustang home felt like driving through a dream. I'd forgotten what it felt like. The rumble of that engine, the responsive steering, the way the whole machine seemed to breathe and pulse with life. Thomas used to say the car had a personality: temperamental but loyal, powerful but graceful. He was right. I cried the whole way home, but they weren't entirely sad tears. They were also tears of relief, of gratitude, of love. When I pulled into the driveway, Kevin's car was there. He was sitting on the porch steps, his head in his hands. When he heard the Mustang's engine, he looked up. His face was pale, his eyes red. "Mom." I turned off the engine and got out, stood there with the keys in my hand, saying nothing. "How did you—" "The dealership said—" He stood up, stumbling over his words. "Mom, I can explain." "Can you?" He opened his mouth, closed it. "I needed the money. For Paris. For us. For Ashley and me. For our life. Mom, you don't understand. She's been so stressed with work, and we've been fighting, and I thought if I could just give her this one thing, this perfect trip, maybe she'd love you more." I walked up the steps, stopping a few feet away from him. "Kevin, if your wife's love depends on trips to Paris, you have bigger problems than I can solve. That's not fair, isn't it? Kevin, I have tried so hard to like Ashley, to give her the benefit of the doubt, to believe that she makes you happy. But sweetheart, you haven't seemed happy in years. You seem exhausted, anxious, like you're constantly trying to prove something." "I'm fine," he said automatically. "You're not. And you betrayed your father's memory and my trust because you're not." He flinched like I'd struck him. "I know. God, Mom, I know. I'm so sorry. I was desperate and I wasn't thinking clearly, and you forged my signature. I know. You lied to me. I know. You sold your father's car for a vacation. I know." He was crying now, tears streaming down his face. "I know, okay? I fucked up. I fucked up so badly, and I don't know how to fix it." I looked at my son, my boy who'd once been so sweet, so open, so full of joy, and felt my anger crack. Not disappear, but crack. Let in a sliver of light. "Why didn't you just ask me for money?" I said softly. "If you needed it so badly, why didn't you just ask?" "Because you would have said no. Probably. But at least it would have been honest." He sank back down onto the steps, his face in his hands. "I'm a terrible son." "Yes," I said. "Right now, you are." He looked up, shocked. But you can be better, I continued. You can learn from this. You can figure out what kind of man you want to be. The kind who lies and takes shortcuts, or the kind your father tried to raise. The kind who builds things instead of destroying them. What do I do? He whispered. How do I fix this? I don't know, baby. That's something you have to figure out yourself. I walked past him into the house, leaving him on the porch. Leaving him with his shame and his choices and his consequences. Over the next few weeks, Kevin tried. He called every day. I didn't always answer, but he kept calling. He sent flowers with notes that said, "I'm sorry," in increasingly desperate handwriting. He showed up on Saturdays, asking if he could help around the house, if there was anything I needed, if he would please just talk to me. I let him suffer for a while, not out of cruelty, but because I needed him to understand. Really understand. Ashley, notably, did not apologize. She sent one terse text. "I'm sorry you're upset, but Kevin had the legal right to sell the car." Then nothing. I blocked her number. One Saturday, about a month after everything imploded, Kevin showed up with a toolbox. "Can I see the car?" he asked. I considered saying no, but something in his face, something humble and broken and honest, made me nod. We walked to the garage together. I opened the door, and we stood there looking at the Mustang. "I forgot how beautiful it is," Kevin said quietly. "Your father loved it. He loved me too, didn't he?" More than anything, Kevin's face crumbled. "I don't deserve it. The car, his love, any of it. I'm such a—" "Kevin," I touched his arm. "You made a terrible mistake, but you're not irredeemable. Your father wouldn't want you to hate yourself. He'd want you to learn, to grow, to become the man he believed you could be." "I don't know if I can." "You can, but you have to want to. You have to choose it every day." He nodded, wiping his eyes. Then he opened the toolbox. "Dad used to let me help him work on the car when I was little. I don't know if you remember." "I remember." "Do you think, would it be okay if, could I change the oil? Or check the brake fluid? Or just be here with it?" I looked at my son, seeing for the first time in years the boy he used to be, the boy who'd cried at movies and loved thunderstorms and called me his best friend. "Yes," I said. "I think your father would like that." We didn't fix everything that day. Kevin's marriage remained troubled. Ashley eventually filed for divorce when she realized the Paris trip was permanently canceled and Kevin was no longer willing to finance her lifestyle. Kevin moved into an apartment downtown, started therapy, began the slow work of rebuilding himself. He came over every Saturday. We worked on the Mustang together, sometimes actually working, sometimes just sitting in the garage talking, remembering Thomas, learning each other again. It wasn't perfect. There were setbacks. Days when I was too angry to see him. Days when his guilt made him useless. Days when we both missed Thomas so much we could barely function. But we tried. We kept trying. 1 year after the almost sale, on what would have been Thomas's 60th birthday, Kevin and I drove the Mustang out to the coast. We found an empty beach, parked facing the ocean, and sat on the hood watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. "I still can't believe I almost lost this," Kevin said. "But you didn't, because a stranger cared more about Dad's legacy than I did." That's not entirely fair. It's true, though. I thought about Frank Delgado, who'd sent me a Christmas card and refused payment for his trouble. About the small miracles that sometimes arrive just when you need them most. About the way grief can either destroy you or teach you what truly matters. Your father used to say the car had a soul. I thought he was being poetic. But I think he meant that everything you build with love has a soul. Every moment you invest, every sacrifice you make, every choice to keep going when it would be easier to quit. That becomes part of it. The car has a soul because your father put his soul into it. And now that soul is teaching us both something important. What's that? That love is work. That family is work. That the things worth having are the things worth fighting for. Kevin nodded. We sat in silence, listening to the waves crash against the shore. "I love you, Mom," he said finally. "I love you too, baby." The Mustang's purple paint glowed in the fading light, and I swear I could feel Thomas there with us. Not gone, never gone, just transformed. Living in the rumble of the engine, the shine of the chrome, the love between a mother and son who'd found their way back to each other. Some things can't be sold. Some things can't be lost. Some things exist beyond money, beyond betrayal, beyond even death itself. Thomas had known that when he built the car. Now we knew it too. The envelope had arrived on a Tuesday, a simple piece of mail that nearly destroyed everything. But in the end, it saved us. It forced us to confront what we'd been avoiding. That grief and selfishness and fear can make us lose sight of what matters. That betrayal leaves scars. That forgiveness is possible but not easy. That family is a verb, not a noun, something you do, not something you are. Every Saturday now, Kevin and I drive the Mustang. Sometimes we don't talk. Sometimes we share memories. Sometimes we just exist together in the rumble of the engine and the wind in our hair. And every time, I feel Thomas smiling. The car runs perfectly. Purple as a bruise. Purple as a sunset. Purple as a promise kept. The chrome gleams. The engine purrs. The soul remains intact. Just like us.